University of Lille. And Mr. FÉRET, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you. I hope you can see my presentation. Yeah, just let's start. So yes, so I'm the head of the Open Science Service, and I'm going to present you the services we offer to research projects funded either by the H2020 program or by the French main funder, the ANR. Just a bit of context on our environment. So the University of Lille is the result of the merging of three pre-existing universities in 2018, and it gave birth to a multidisciplinary institution which grouped together about 3,600 researchers, which are spread into a bit more than 60 research units. In our institution, there were about 80 new ANR projects funded in 2019. And currently we have about 30 ongoing H2020 projects, even if only few of them are actually coordinated by our institution. The libraries of the previous university started to work on open science from about 2013, but with the merging of the universities, it has permit to set up a new dedicated open science service when we reorganized the libraries. And so this service was created in 2020, and it's composed of 9 people with 6 open access contact points and for research units and researchers, and 3 of us working mainly on data management support. It represents about 4 full-time employees. So the library started to support research projects with their open science requirements in 2017. First on the Sciences and Technology campus, because it was a campus on which there were many projects, and then we extended these services on the other campuses in 2018 and 2019. Just a few figures to give you an idea of the extent of the support we provide. So we individually supported about 65 grant proposals in the last 3 years, and we currently support about a bit more than 15 ongoing projects with open access and sometimes with data management as well. And since autumn 2019, we also set up some training sessions for coordinators. And in a year and a half, we provided 9 sessions, which were attended by about 100 researchers. And I will explain later in my presentation the difference between individual support and collective training. So why do we support projects? That's a basic question, but there are different answers for this. First of all, even when projects are individual, such as the ERC grants, for instance, they always group together scientific leaders with a team of researchers. And when we talk about collaborative projects, there may be several dozens of researchers that are behind the project. And so it's a very useful way to reach many researchers at a time. Add to this, project members are usually very receptive about our services because it helps them to comply with their requirements, which is clearly a strong incentive. And finally, because most of projects will last for 4 to 6 years, it's a very good way to set up good practices and to make sure they are well implemented in the long term and not just a one-shot training, for instance. Why do we support them as soon as the grant application? There are 2 main reasons. First, when we started to work with research projects, we noticed that because they had been helped by consulting firms when writing their proposals, they often tend to rely on them on any open science aspects, and sometimes to even kind of subcontracting them the respect of their open science requirements. And it usually leads to quite minimal open science standards, So our plan was to support the coordinators as soon as when they write their application, and then because of this to become their go-to service on open science instead of these consulting firms. The second point is that we met with several coordinators of ongoing projects who had not thought about what open science implies in their project before having it funded, and then it often proves to be a bit too late once the project has started to think about it, because partners could disagree, for example, on the level of data sharing, or they could have differences in the approach of where they will disseminate the data and the publications. And it's also preferable to agree on the strategy and on which resources the consortium needs to implement this strategy into concrete actions. So this slide is just a diagram that shows all the open science activities through the lifetime of a project, and it gives you an idea of where a library can help a project coordinators and through all the advancement of the project. So what do we do when we support grant proposal writing? I'm gonna first present the individual support we offer to researchers, and then the difference with training we propose them. So this support is only offered to researchers of our institutions that coordinate their project and not when they are only partners, because as coordinators, they have actually the responsibility to comply with their requirements on open science. So at the grant proposal writing phase, we first request the access to the draft proposal, and which gives you a mere idea of the project and the kind of data it can produce. And then we have an individual interview with the coordinator. It usually lasts about 2 hours. And based on this, we can contribute to the proposal in different sections of the project, depending of how ambitious the coordinator is on openness, and on depending as well of the data the consortium produce and which kind of data management they had initially thought of. So at this phase, we will check if there are any ethic issues, for instance, thanks to the completion of the ethics self-assessment. And if there are some, then we will identify the good support services. So for example, the data protection officer for ethics. And then we will ask the coordinators to go to this service to make sure that everything is well identified as issues, and that they planned the good actions to cope with these issues. And we also discuss the dissemination strategy, of course, and we propose some improvements. I quite like the idea that was presented by Willem on the idea of to have some scholarly publication plan. I think it's really a good idea to have this kind of discussion for project members when they write their application, and discuss how they will disseminate all their outputs. What we do not at this step is that we are only in contact with our coordinator. So we do not discuss with all the partners of the project at this stage, because that would be too time consuming, and often grant application phase are quite limited in time. And and as I said before, we do not support projects in which we are not coordinators individually. For projects that are funded afterwards, then we will support them first on open access. We will help them with project coordination by presenting open access requirements and how to comply with them during the project meetings, such as the kickoff meetings, for example. And we will identify open access repositories for project partners so that they know where they can upload their publications. And we also make the liaison between the project officer and the consortium members about any open access questions, because we notice that it's not always easy for coordinators to understand what is requested by the project officer, and so it could be interesting to have a third-party point of view to discuss and make sure that the consortium well understand and respect what is asked by the officer. To monitor compliance with open access, first we make sure that all publications are well uploaded into repositories, and then that they are well harvested by the open air services and by the EU participant portal. And we have access to the projects portal, so we can validate publications and spot any missing ones. And about once a year, we make a checkup of the project publications with the coordinators to make sure that all the new publications are well preserved and disseminated. And to have this kind of regular checkup really helps to make sure that the consortium well understood the requirements, and that all the members and of the project, all the partners, actually comply with them. Because in some big consortium, then they can produce like more than 50 publications during a project, and sometimes much more. And it's really quite a challenge to make sure that all of them are well disseminated in open access. What we do not is that we don't contact the partners directly. We just give the necessary information to the coordinator so that they can contact their partners, and if necessary they add us in CC of their message, so we can once more make sure that there is a good understanding from both parts about what the partners need to do on open access. And as well, we do not upload publications ourselves, because we consider this is our researchers' responsibility. The way we support our projects with data management, so at the beginning of projects, we also present the research data management requirements in order to make sure that all the partners are aware of their obligations. If necessary, we also have a specific meeting with the coordinator, and as well, we can be in contact with the project officer about the writing of the DMP. On the DMP, so as at the grant application phase, we have an interview with the coordinator, which allows us to produce some kind of draft DMP for just the data produced by our institution. And we can send this first version to partners with some other guidance, which allows them to have an idea of what is expected as a DMP. And then thanks on this, they can then write they can add their own information related to the data they produce and manage. And then we can review the final DMP that actually groups together all the different contributions. And we also try, when we can, to address our coordinators' partners to their institutional local contact point on data management, so that they can have a benefit of their own local support service. And to facilitate this, in France, with other libraries, we set up a directory which is called SOS DMP, and which lists all the support services on data management planning in French research institutions. And it really helps to gain time when we want to give advice to researchers about who they should contact in their own institution. And so that would be interesting to have such a directory at European scale as well. So what we do not is that we do not upload data sets into repositories for researchers, and we do not actually handle the data for them neither. We are really more on the data management plan writing, and then on providing some guidance and advices on different data management practices. So this slide shows the evolution of the number of proposals we supported on an individual basis during the last 3.5 years. So as you can see, there was quite a big gap between 2018 and the last 2 years. This is mainly due to the new requirements from the French National Agency for Research, that now that set up some open science requirements for call for proposals 2019 and onwards. But our resources do not grow as fast as the number of projects we support. So it forced us to have a less time-consuming approach, which was complementary with this individual approach. That's the main reason we decided to offer training sessions from autumn 2019. And these sessions are open to our researchers, either they are coordinators or partners in their project. And there are three kinds of sessions. So one is dedicated to project at the grant proposal phase, and the two other ones are for funded projects on open access and data management requirements. And add to the training on data management, we also offer a data management reviewing service to researchers, but only if they attended the training, so that we don't have to make some kind of individual training again. And they're supposed to have the basic about DMP, and then we can support them with and give them advice to improve their DMP. And because of the health crisis, we had to offer webinars instead of face-to-face trainings. And this proved to be very convenient for us to reach researchers from different campuses at the same time. Because on some of our campuses, there are very few projects that are managed, and it would have not been efficient to offer training on all our campuses. Well, I just wanted to summarize the benefits and disadvantages of these two approaches. So individual support is very good to be embedded into projects and offer a truly personalized support, and to make sure that requirements are well respected. But this takes quite a lot of time. So that's the reason why collective training is quite interesting as well. But the problem of collective support is that it showed little effect to go beyond the simple requirements, especially on data management. The researchers, the coordinators will write that DMP, but most of the time we are not really sure of what they do beyond this on the actual data management practices. So this set of services was a good way to develop our library role by connecting research projects with other support services, and the reverse as well, by working with grant office, IT department, and DPO, and by having our expertise recognized at different steps of the project. It also brought us a new public because we usually worked with quite young researchers, and because project coordinators and scientific leaders in projects are usually quite advanced researchers, it gave us the opportunity to work with research team leaders. So I just make a small study on the profile of 8 H2020 project coordinators we supported in 2019. And so there were 53. And they had published so far nearly 300 publications as an average for each of them. And they had quite huge metrics, which gives you an idea of the profile of and of the specificity of the audience we reach on this, with this set of services. To put an end to my presentation, just a few words on a guide, a practical guide we wrote with a working group on data management of French universities. So it's dedicated to A&R projects on how they can improve their projects thanks to open science when they write their grant application. But actually, the main 4 points that you have on the screen can also be important for European projects. So I think most of the content of the guide could interest you as well. And if you want to know more about what we do, I just provided you with some links to a poster and to a presentation I did in LILLE a year and a half ago, and as well to a paper we published in LILLE quarterly to present our approach. Well, thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any questions, yeah, just feel free to ask either during the session or later. And thank you for the invitation.
Yes, thank you very much.